The year was 1969, 50 years to the date, and Steve Prefontaine was just starting to become the legend we know he is today. But his last year at Marshfield High School was about more than breaking the national 2-mile record.
To beat Pre, you had to beat him up here and with your legs, and that's tough to do. He was unbelievably tough mentally.
Walt McClure, I think geared his training for a shot at the national high school 2-mile record. And so there was a lot of buzz around when that was going to happen and where it was going to happen.
The day was April 25th, 1969 at Corvallis High School.
Everybody's talking maybe somebody's going to break 9 minutes today, and that was the goal. And I think a couple of them did break 9 minutes, or they were right there, but they were like 150 yards behind Pre.
Phil got one arm and I got the other one, and we put them, around our shoulders, and we started to walk him a little ways until he could catch his breath and recover slightly. And then they announced on the PA system that he had just broken the national record. And it was like he had all this energy again.
The Corvallis coach says next time you decide to set a national record at our school, we'll pass. Just got all the paperwork in those days that was required.
Pre had arrived. He also set the 1-mile Oregon high school state record at the Coos County meet that same year. With those time milestones out of the way, he turned his focus to making history.
Our senior year was the first year you could double at state in the mile and 2-mile. Before that, you could only run one or the other.
That was one of our objectives throughout the whole senior year, not only the times, but also, to be, the first kid to ever double the mile and the 2-mile.
The rule change came as a result of an outstanding crop of Oregon runners and also a little bit of a push from Walt McClure.
It was never called that, but in reality it was a Prefontaine ruling. McClure was on the state board, and he went to the meeting in the middle of the winter, and he basically said, guys, I got one that can run all day and all night. He can double. And I think he had some backing, obviously had some backing from Bowerman and from Dillinger.
And at the state meet, Pre did it again.
I took a bunch of my friends out there and I said, you guys are going to see something special today. And then none of them had ever heard of him, and they couldn't believe it. Blew him away. Oh, he's going way too fast. He can't take this pace. All those other guys are running right together. They know what they're doing. I said, he knows what he's doing.
Steve finished that state meet as the high point man of the event, pacing Pirates track.
As we went to the starting line, he was coming back from having finished that race, which was a tough race, competitive race, that he'd won. And he said, okay, guys, it's all up to you. And I've thought about that many times over the 50 years since we graduated from high school.
Ultimately, the team finished third, and Steve graduated into the waiting arms of Oregon and Bill Bowerman. And the rest, as they say, is the stuff of legend.
Who's foremost in your mind in Munich?
Well, there's a lot of them. There's going to be 12 people in the final event, and if I'm there, there's going to be 12 people that could win it.
Steve Prefontaine lays at rest on a hill overlooking the water in Coos Bay. His rock in Eugene is a holy place in the runner's world, but here he is at peace in an area surrounded by those who knew him best, when Pre was just a shortening of his last name.
He was pretty long before he got to Eugene.
He was just the guy that sat in front of me in math.
He'd always acknowledge anybody that he knew from high school, whether they were an athlete or just somebody at Marshfield. But he never forgot his roots.
He was standing there on the track, and there was a growing line of little kids and young kids, junior high and younger, not high schoolers, coming up to him with their little pieces of paper or programs, and he stood there and signed those. Excuse me. That's who he was.
50 years after his final season donning the colors of his hometown high school, it all means something greater. Pre is as much an idea, a mentality, as it is a name.
There's definitely, kind of a little bit of a weight to the job as far as realizing that it's not just your typical track and field head coaching position or being part of the team. I think that it for the coaches and staff, it kind of makes it a little bit more important. I think that we take it on, especially from the head coach. I kind of feel sometimes like I'm as much of a caretaker, as a coach.
But to those in Coos Bay, Pre represents the boy and the man they knew, who ran the track at Marshfield that now bears his name, who walked down 4th Street, where murals of him adorn building walls, and where his words echo and reverberate still.
I think Coos Bay is still proud of, I'm going to say their most famous son.
I think the biggest thing is the example he set to push, to do your best that you possibly can for people, for kids to do not only in sports, but for the rest of their life.
It does something to them in seeing where this humongous legacy came from, this little, teeny, out of the way, beautiful place called Coos Bay, Oregon. I think it makes them realize in their heads that, yeah, I can do this too. Yeah. Look at what he did. I can do this too.
Steve Prefontaine would be turning 68 this year, and despite the tragic nature of his passing, he continues to inspire as the rebellious collegian with long flowing hair and a trademark mustache, or the fresh-faced small-town Coos Bay kid leading from the front. Even long departed, his memory, the manifestation of the runner's spirit, is never truly gone. And here, where the Pacific Ocean meets the Douglas firs, and the dunes along with them create the perfect runner's paradise, Pre is home.
In 2019, Steve Prefontaine is known as a great many things to many different people. And even with Hayward Field gone and being renovated, his spirit will still be present in the 2020 Olympic trials and the IAAF 2021 Worlds. That gift is going to stay with all of us, at least for the rest of our lives. Reporting in the studio, Andrew Hobner, KZI 9 Sports.